Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Nyman. I work at the Main Theater in Santa Clarita, and welcome back to the New Heights. We have a playwright panel here called From Concept to Stage. So the first question that I have for this wonderful panel is I would like you all to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your playwriting experience, who you are, and something that really excites you about playwriting. So we'll kind of just go in order on my screen. So we'll go Wade, Kitty, and then Anthony, and just kind of y'all can introduce yourselves and get this concept conversation going.
All right, great. I get to go first. My name is Wade Bradford, and gosh, you had a list of different things. So I guess it's just kind of general starting point. So I have been writing plays since high school. I started writing plays. And my main focus is usually plays for children and teens. So a lot of them I write for middle school and high school. Mm-hmm. But I do write comedies that are for a wide range of audiences, all kind of all ages and adult audiences as well. But I'm really a child at heart. And I'm endlessly amused by silly things. I take my nonsense very seriously, and so I love to come up with comedies, anything that's farcical, and I'm not above parody, especially when I'm writing for kids. So I like to combine genres. One of my plays that has been pretty successful at the high school level is called CSI Neverland, and its sequel CSI Wonderland. So as it sounds like, it kind of takes the crime scene TV genre and meshes it with fantasy. So I like genre bending and fun comedies. Is that enough for the intro?
That's great. That's fantastic. Kitty, you're up.
Okay, my name's Kitty Burns, and I've been writing since 1989, and I started out in theater acting, and I was on stage, backstage, stage manager, props, lights, sound, whatever. And finally one day I thought, I wonder what it would be like to write my own play. And I knew nothing about playwriting, and that's never stopped me on anything. If I want to dive into something, not knowing anything about it is no excuse not to do it. And so I signed up for a creative writing class up at our city college, and the teacher said, I know nothing about playwriting, but hey, give it a shot. And I did, and I also write comedies, and I love to make people laugh. And there are so many things in life that are so unbelievable and farcical, but true. It's like nobody would believe that. So those are the kind of things I like to choose as the basis of my plays. And I did this on the first one. I picked an event that happened in JFK in New York, and it was hilarious. And it was the basis for the play, and then it just took off in all different directions. And all of a sudden I felt like I was writing with Rod Serling. And it just was hilarious and so much fun. And the first play got done. It was done by a professional company in San Francisco, which really blew me away because it was just 6 months after I wrote it. It was total luck. And right away I was hooked. I mean, I thought, this is so much fun. And there's so many things to write about. And so I went into my life and I could write about that. And it's just never ended. So that's my background on playwriting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anthony?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Aguilar. I'm originally from Boyle Heights, California. And I guess 3 in a row. I also write comedies, and mostly only comedies now that I think about it. Started off in high school. I started writing actually some comedy sketches, and I originally intended to be a stand-up. And I tried stand-up a little, performed at a few clubs, I did the Hollywood Improv, but then I fell into the writing. and I really loved it. And I studied theater in college, and I just really wanted to become a playwright, and I really wanted to become a writer because there's something about collaboration I really love as a writer, and I think stand-up is fun, but there's also something really more fun about collaborating with other actors, other designers, and that really kind of honed it in on me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I really enjoy this a lot more. And since then, I've written several plays. I'm getting my first one published later this year, crossing fingers. And I also write a lot of my plays revolve around characters that are Latinx, Latinos, Latinas, just people that I revolve around my family, revolve around people I knew, people I grew up with, and just people that are reflective of my culture. One of the plays that I've been writing is a series of a superhero plays about a Latino superhero, and his name is El Verde. And he is a superhero who is a immigrant Mexican factory worker. And one day he has an accident in his job, and he believes that's giving him superpowers. So he goes off and he becomes his version of a superhero.
So when we talk about playwriting in like the historical context of theater, so playwriting obviously has been around since, you know, Greek times and maybe even before then. And so how is your experience of like understanding playwriting, or like where do you get the most inspiration from? Do you draw your inspiration more from playwriting from in a historical perspective? Do you draw it from 1950s playwrights, or do you kind of borrow a little more from postmodernist and or create your own kind of section of playwriting? Anybody can take it. Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
I grew up very TV oriented. Like I grew up watching a lot of sitcoms from the 50s and the 60s, and that's just, I love that it's just everything was really campy and over the top, and I think that I tend to take a lot from that. I love comedy that's really zany and physical. As far as inspiration goes, because I've spent a lot of time, I also surviving as a playwright, I've also worked as a tech. I run lighting boards, run music sound boards, all that. And I've had the great experience of watching a lot of actors on stage. And for me, inspiration comes a lot from watching actors perform. Like I'll see someone and I go, oh my God, they're so funny, they're so talented. And I'll start getting their voice in my head and the way they perform. And then if I'm fortunate enough and I become friends with whatever actor, I'll be like, oh my God, like I'll get to know who they are as a person. And then a character will start bubbling in me. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I want to write for this person. Yeah, I've been very lucky that a lot of my characters I've been geared towards certain actors that I want to play. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. I love the idea of like taking the real life experiences, but then putting them into your playwriting, instead of, you know, coming from more from a research base, but you come from like the actual personal life. So like you live in the moment and you're like, oh, this person becomes the plot.
Definitely.
Kitty, Wade, do you want to add to like the conversation of like, where do you draw your inspiration from when you're like just starting out?
Well, I start with, like I said, something that's actually happened, either to me or to somebody that I know. And I take it from there and I write backwards. I don't use an outline. I can't use an outline because I don't know where the play's going. And so I've never understood the concept of an outline. It's like, how can you organize where the play's going to go if you don't know that? You know, you can't say, oh, first I'm going to have him do this, then I'm going to have him do that. I completely empty my mind of any kind of structure when I'm writing, and I just let the play go where it wants to go. And if I do get stuck, I love doing research. And I will research a subject to the point of actually interviewing people. Like my play Psycho Night at the Paradise Lounge. It involves murder. And so there was a police involved, and the police, part of the play I thought, I want to get this right. I don't want to just take it out of Law and Order or CSI or something. I want to know what the cops really do. So I went to the police station and I told them I was writing a play. And I said, does anybody have a little bit of time they can spend with me? This one officer came in. We were in there for 45 minutes talking about murder scenes. And it was terrific. It was so much fun. And so real life can be revamped into hilarious scenes. But I want to get it right too, because I think that kind of adds to the humor. If you really write what happens and then take it into a humorous situation, people can relate to it because it is what really happens. And I like writing about that, about things people can relate to and they can identify with and say, hey, that happened to me once, And so that's how I get my inspiration, is through an original idea from my life or someone else's that I know, and then taking it into degrees of how it really would happen and then how it does in the play,
Yeah,
and totally rewriting reality.
most definitely.
That makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, the idea of like taking the truth and showing it for what it is, which, sometimes the truth is hysterical. Sometimes the truth is so comedic. It's hard to, I think some of the best comedians, I'm thinking about Buster Keaton was so into just showing the truth on stage, or showing the truth in what he did. And he would always be stoic and like always stoic. He says, I always get the best laugh when I just say the truth and I'm stoic.
Yes, yeah.
Something about the truth and stoicism that I think just adds to the comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of always being far-fetched and, oh, that had never happened, instead having them say, yeah, that's happened to me, and really identifying with it.
Most definitely. Wait, you want to jump in on this?
I'm kind of like Anthony in that I grew up kind of addicted to TV. I don't know if Anthony, were you addicted to TV when you were a kid?
I was addicted. I don't know how I got my homework done, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I was a pretty good student, but
and
watched
you
a lot
look
of TV.
awful young to me. So what shows did you watch that were from the 50s and 60s that you
I
loved?
loved Green Acres. I loved
Okay.
the Dick Van Dyke Show. I loved Lucy. Gilligan's
Yes.
Island is like one of my favorites, just
Yeah.
because it's so zany and off the wall that like you can't really take it seriously at all.
So all the shows that were on reruns,
Yeah.
I grew up watching those as well. I also the Muppet Show I got the Labyrinth poster back here. The Muppet Show was like very influential to me as a kid, and another big inspiration for me as a kid were Looney Tunes cartoons. So I liked that level of like high imagination, zaniness and silliness and some slapstick and stuff like that. And then as I got older and started actually reading more, and then going into college, because I focused on literature, I did fall in love with Shakespeare. And so I was talking about parodies. I do, like, my favorite person to parody is William Shakespeare, or the plays of William Shakespeare. And that's because I really do love the plays so much. There's so many different ways to use sort of humor and kind of sketch comedy to sort of bring out different ideas connected to it. So even though I'm lampooning it, I'm also very much in love with the work of Shakespeare. And to a lesser extent, I feel that way about Shaw. I really like George Bernard Shaw a lot, and kind of wish he was more popular and more relevant today, because he wrote a lot of great plays too that we don't, other than Pygmalion, aka My Fair Lady, we don't talk too much about his plays.
Yeah.
And I could go on, but basically I think that each sort of play that I take on is usually some response to something. It's usually responding to some situation I've been in, or some artistic work that I admire, and I want to maybe mesh it together with something else. I got, like, I think one of my plays here, like Downton Zombie, right? I like zombie movies. I like Downton Abbey. So why not mesh those two together?
I love this idea of I feel like you all kind of touched on it. It's you walk into a world and you just have the situation, your world situation, and you have the inspiration to write a play from it. So let's say that I'm a layman and I'm new to playwriting and I want to write a play. So maybe I start from a situation from my own life. What would you say is the draft process like? So what is your draft process like? How many times do you rewrite the play? How long do you usually spend in your draft process before you let anybody read it? Or do you let people read it while you're writing? What's kind of your style in your writing process that kind of that works for you specifically? And I know like we're all talking about comedies here, and I realize that that's pretty. I think comedy's the hardest thing to do as a theater artist, because being comedic relevant on stage, I think it's harder than just doing a drama. So I think that there's this like this inspiration for what you're writing to let the audience feel the comedic timing. Wait, why don't you talk a little bit about what your draft process is like, where you start, where you go, and how long are you in this draft process?
Sure. First, I want to say about the comedy versus drama is that I would like to write more drama. I'm not very good at it. Anytime I try to like, this is going to be really serious. It comes out, I think it comes across to other people as like very like overly sentimental or maudlin. So it's more like, oh, I keep failing it anytime I've tried to do drama. Or if I write something dramatic and people laugh, it's like, yeah, you were supposed to laugh at that. That's really funny, isn't it? So although I appreciate it when people say that comedy is harder, but that's not so much for me. So my drafting process when I am working on comedy, which is most of the time, is that I want two things to happen. I want to develop characters that people can believe in, because if you do that, if you rise above stereotype, people are, just like Kitty was saying, people are going to find it more relatable, more true to life, and you're going to laugh a lot more when you see yourselves or when you see other people in the characters. Even if the characters are far-fetched, they should still be believable personality-wise. So I like to brainstorm before I really start writing an outline, which I don't usually do. I'm kind of like Kitty most of the time. I might have like bullet points as far as like beginning, middle, and end. But before I do any structural outlining or start writing dialogue, I do like to brainstorm and kind of imagine the characters for a while, sort of get to know the characters. And so I do a lot of daydreaming while I should be doing other things. Like or if I'm putting away the dishes or whatever. So I daydream, I listen to music when I'm driving in the car, and I'm daydreaming about these characters. And I kind of wait until like a character or maybe a situation involving characters speaks to me enough where it's like, yeah, I'm going to try doing something that's cooked enough. I'm going to try doing something. And then it's usually a matter of just kind of writing the dialogue out. And I don't spend too much time worrying about stage directions or anything like that. I'm very minimalistic about stage directions, at least at first. And I just put my character in a situation and I see what happens or what kind of argument unfolds. And then I try to raise the stakes. And if I know what the plot or the conflict is, I try to put my character through a little bit of hell before the character gets what he or she wants. And usually they get something that they didn't know that they wanted, right? But maybe that they needed, by the end. So I guess in a nutshell, my drafting process is just daydream a lot, start writing it. If I like the characters in the situation, I'm going to finish the play because I want to see what happens to them. If I don't, that means it's crap, and I give myself permission to stop. I don't force it if it's too hard. And that's about it.
Amazing. So would you say like your process is very individualistic. It's very within your, your realm. You kind of keep it to yourself. When do you feel comfortable in sharing your work? Like when do you get to that point?
Well, it depends on what the project is. I have, of course, back right before the main became the main, I for the first time collaborated with a fellow playwright, Christopher Flowers.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun, but a new challenge for me. Oh, my dog's walking. Darn you, dog! I'm on Zoom. But it was a fun challenge to bounce ideas off with another person.
Yeah.
And so Chris and I have created 3 plays together. So normally I've been very like in my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And just very solid, just kind of going into my little world that I create, and then if it's good enough, somebody's going to publish it or put it on, and if it's not good enough, then it's going to sit in my drawer and wait to go into a museum someday, maybe. But working with Chris has been interesting because there's things where it's like, I think this is funny. It's like Chris might not think it's funny, or vice versa. So there's kind of negotiation and compromise that goes on. Ultimately, though, whether I'm collaborating or doing my own play, it's really the first production that happens where I feel like that's where I get the feedback, especially if I can watch it, right? If I can watch it with a live audience, then I get the real feedback that's valuable. And then I usually want to tinker with things and change things a little bit based upon, the first run or the first week of the audience. So I've been very lucky to sometimes direct some of the plays that I create at the Canyon Theater Guild. And so that's been invaluable to get the audience feedback and then to know what works and what doesn't. Because a lot of times I think this is going to be so funny that they're going to love this. And the audience, like, they don't get, it's just a lead balloon. Yeah.
I love it. Kitty, I'd love to hear your process, and then after Kitty, Anthony will dig into yours as well.
Okay, what I like to do is, I've never collaborated with anybody else on writing a play, and I get my solitude and I just shut everything else out, and as soon as I get an idea, I just start in on it. And of course, every writer has a paper and pen with them all the time. And one time I was in a grocery store and something came to me and I didn't have paper. I went up and I said, "Can I buy this paper bag?" And she goes, "What?" And I said, "Never mind." And I just started writing on the bag because I didn't want to forget it, And so I said, "I'll use this when I check out, But so I do write alone. And then once I'm finished, I have a group of friends that I bribe with dinner, and they come over, and dinner fits the theme of the play. And everybody gets a copy with a pen. And whoever wants to, they take apart and they read it. And so we all sit around reading it. And this is me hearing it for the very first time. And with their pen, they mark either "I don't like this line," or "you misspelled this word," or "this is good," or "this goes better with this," whatever. And then after we finish reading it and I hear it for the first time, then we talk about it and they give me their feedback. And they've also written it on their copy. And then when they leave, I get all the copies together and I go through them. And if their advice, if it fits and I like it, I use it. Otherwise, I just stay with what I did. But I love working that way because that gets me to hear it out loud. It's one thing to keep reading it over and over and revamping it. And that takes maybe about 4 months for each play, I would say. And then when I'm ready to have my friends read it, and of course with the pandemic, we couldn't do that. So we did a Zoom meeting and I emailed, during the pandemic, I wrote 3-1-X about being retired. And again, relating to it and with other people who have given me their quips about something that happened being retired. And so we had a Zoom reading of it. And that was great. It was so much fun. And then, hearing it for the first time is really good feedback to me. And then you can hear how the words are actually going to sound. And do they sound better than they read? Or do they read better than they sound? And so that helps me so much. But yeah, again, just hearing it and then visualizing it, and that works, and then also I've had, I'm a member of the Dramatists Guild, and they have a program called Footlights. And so I've submitted my 3 1-acts, the new ones, to Footlights, and hopefully they will have a reading of it. And then, you can hear it from them too. So yeah, feedback from other people helps me a lot.
Yeah. Anthony.
Yeah, I think kind of in the same vein of Kitty, where I also have a trusted group of friends that I always tend to share the beginnings of it. I have her name, she's a director, Alejandra Cisneros, and she's directed a lot of my work, and I've trust in her that I can show her. But I usually try to start showing people a little bit after the exciting incident happens, when the big boom, oh my gosh, your character's life is going to change forever. Because then that way I know I have the groundwork of the beginning. Because if I tend to get a little bit nervous when I show people anything earlier, because it tends to throw me off, and I go, oh, no, then I got to just start new. As far as working from there, I've noticed that in my writing, a lot of times it's been going off of seeing an actor who's really funny, creating a character off of that, and then going from there and trying to figure out what the conflict that character has. But I've noticed that the older I've gotten, I tend to go, okay, well, what's going on more in my life? And what are the feelings I'm trying to go through right now? And what are the things that I'm dealing on a personal level that I really should try to address more on stage, because it's me, and I'm figuring myself out, and figuring out who I am. And I think I'm looking back, and I think if I see my earlier work, it's a little bit more in the veins of comedy sketch. And then towards the end, there's more like, oh, okay, here's pain now. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've noticed that there's been a little bit of a change throughout, as far as, and it's still all comedy. I think it's just the subject matter has evolved, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Kitty, you come from this very collaborative world where you pay for people's dinner to read it, and you'll change your play on a whim based on that, and but you're your play's already done by the time people are reading it, or your play is drafted fully. And Anthony, I like this idea of you're letting people see it even before it's fully drafted, you have the inciting incident, but and this idea of you're building the play with people as a stepping stone. And Wade, you were talking about your experience with collaborating with Christopher Flowers, and how writing a play together, and how that's such a different beast than your usual path. Talking about collaboration, which is one of the most important elements of theater, at least in my opinion. What have been some of the successes of collaborating with your plays that have just got to the stage? So for instance, with actors or directors, and do you find yourself wanting to rewrite the play in the middle of rehearsal? Do you let the rehearsal process kind of go its way, or are there stuff that you're oh no, I can talk to the director and we can change the play, change little words here or there, or have you discovered moments with actors and directors that you're they get my work and I work with them, and stuff networking, and how you really build your network as a playwright? Kitty, why don't you start first, and then we'll go Anthony and then Wade, so we'll kind of go a little different.
Okay. Well, my first play, not the first one to be published, but the first one that I wrote, called Terminal Terror, that one was produced in the city in San Francisco by an equity company, and they were nice enough to ask me if I wanted to be in on the audition process. and to actually help pick the actors. And it was really bizarre being on the other side of the table. You know, 'cause I'm usually the one over here shaking, knowing, uh-oh, now I have to read, or now I have to sing or dance, you know. And then the other guys, I always thought they had it easy. Oh, they all just sit there and watch us, and then they pick. No, that's hard. That's very hard. But it was really fun being able to collaborate with the director and have her say, okay, do you think this person fits better as Jennifer, or do you think she fits better as Liz? You know, and then we'd talk about it, and that was really, really interesting, being an actual part of the process. And then they called me and said, do you want to come down and see one of the rehearsals? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. Well, there was one walk-on part, and they cut her out. And that was the part that actually started the process for the play. And when it was finished, I said, oh, I loved it. You guys were great. It's so much fun seeing it done. And I said, but you cut out the girl with the barf bag. And they said, oh, I know, we couldn't get an equity actor to do a walk-on part. And the director looked at me and she said, do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I actually got to be in it, you know. And so it was so neat being able to be a part of the process for that first production. The other productions were all after the plays were published. So there was no real wiggle room there, you know, but it was really interesting having both sides of it before it was published, so they could make changes if they wanted to. And then after it was they were published, it was like, you know, they just followed the script, you know, and I wasn't really a part of the process. I've been thrilled to see a lot of the productions, but it was their show. You know, I was just the one who wrote it, but it was their show, you know, so it was really cool being a member of the audience, you know, and just watching it and going, oh my God, this is Psycho Night, you know. But yeah, so collaborating, I only really got to do on the first one, but it's a memory that I'll always treasure.
Yeah, amazing. I want to get circled back to in the conversation. I eventually want to circle back to this conversation about published plays versus non-published plays. But we'll get to that after this discussion. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, I think when it comes to collaboration, it's a very tricky line, because you want to have the best relationship with your director, because you want to be able to say, this is what I see. And hopefully the play is written well enough that your director can take it and they can bring your vision to life. But a lot of times that's not true. Like, that doesn't happen. And I think that's when the relationship of the playwright and the director come in. And yeah, sometimes the hard part of being a playwright is that you won't have a strong relationship with your director. Sometimes your director won't understand the work and they'll have to put it up anyway. And as much as you try to explain, this is what this means, and this is what I'm going for, and this is it, sometimes that vision won't be put on stage. And I think sometimes you as a playwright, that's kind of letting the ego go and go, okay, you know, you've tried your best. And I think that's why it's really important. I mean, the director-playwright relationship is super important, because at the end of the day, the director is the one it's the conveyor belt, right? Like, the playwright is the one that starts the conveyor belt out, but at the end of the day, it's the director that's going to package it all together and make it look super nice for you. So yeah, I think as far as collaboration, that is one of the key relationships to build. I mean, it's great to build relationships with the actors, with designers and tech crew and everyone else, but I think at the end of the day, the playwright director collaboration is truly the most important.
Yeah, I as a director myself, I find that when I do new works, I love talking to the director and getting their opinion. And Anthony, we've worked together before, teach a playwriting class during the summer. I teach drama workshop. There's these amazing kids, and they write a 10-minute play in like what, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they write it in 3 weeks, and it's going to be performed in like 2 weeks. So they come and they get to work with students or graduates of CSUN who are going to direct their plays, and we sit down with them, and a lot of them don't know how to be a playwright in a rehearsal. A lot of them are afraid to speak up when they're like, oh, I don't know if I like this choice that the director's making. But I remember the empowerment some of the kids felt when as a director myself, I was like, no, you're allowed to talk. You're allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah, I always make it clear to the students. I tell them, when you guys are going to go into the rehearsal process, you talk to your directors. I mean, don't ever talk to your actors. You're not the director. Talk to your director. And I always try to emphasize that, because at the end of the day, like, you're building that relationship with the person who's helping create your play, to make your play come to life.
Yeah. And I think it's incredible, just the like that ability to have that conversation, that hard conversation with people. Because I remember the first time I directed a new work, and I didn't meet with the director. I didn't meet with them at all. I mean, I didn't meet with the writer. I didn't meet with them at all. And like halfway through the process, the writer came in to see my work, and he was like super disappointed. Like he was like, Steven, what are you doing? I was a 17-year-old kid. I didn't really know anybody. And it was so funny for us to have this conversation, and it changed my whole perspective on the play.
Yeah. And then it becomes, I'm sorry about this.
No, go ahead.
It becomes that moment of the director and the playwright, when you kind of realize, okay, this relationship isn't melding. It's about, okay, well then, what am I going to fight for? Is this work? Like, then your brain starts going crazy, because you're like, okay, what should I fight for? This part of the scene that they want me to cut? Should I fight for? Because then all of a sudden that confidence isn't there within each other.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to how important that relationship is.
Definitely. Wade, I'd love to hear your perspective, and I love this conversation, where this is going.
Well, I like I guess Chris Flowers directed the shows that we've collaborated together, and but because I'm also co-writer, I feel like I try, like, it's not a typical playwright director thing. He's co-created the play, and we both have the same kind of goals, because we wrote it together. So I always feel like he does the heavy lifting, and I'm glad to let him do that whenever he directs. So I've always been like very pleased with his direction. And David Steers at College of the Canyons did a one act of mine a few years ago, and that was just kind of a joy to watch. He invited me to see some of the rehearsal process, and so I got to see it kind of at the halfway point, and then like dress rehearsal, and then the performance. So that was, he was very gracious and very, very welcoming. And then I suppose most of my other experiences have just been coming out, like arriving, on opening night to see, whatever they created. And again, because it's a lot of, high school plays, sometimes the actors are quite remarkable and amazing, but sometimes it's a very wooden performance, and they're just saying, behold the forest in all its glory, right? That it's like, you're just glad they memorized your lines. So I think for me, I'm most delighted when the writing speaks to actors well enough that they rise to, that I've created something worthy of them rising to the occasion and working really hard to bring the character to life. That's when I'm really grateful. And I've discovered over the years that I have a bias that I love it when Scottish actors read my monologues in plays. I love it. Like, I just want to write for Scotland now. After I've seen a few monologues on YouTube of my plays. Like, I love this. I love it. So my preference is Scottish, Australian, English. I would say maybe Indian, and then American. Because there's a small group that has in I can't remember what city in India, but there's a few schools that have chosen some of my plays, basically they do readers theater and practice their English. And so I really love, there's something very flattering about hearing actors with accents different from my own reading my plays. It makes me feel very international. I boosts my ego.
You'll have to tell me if any of your plays are being performed in the UK, because I'm moving there in September. So
Okay.
yeah, so I'll have to go see a play in the UK of yours.
They did a little Christmas. It's almost like just a 15-minute Christmas sketch.
Yeah.
During COVID, they had snowman characters masked, and they were outside their theater. So yeah, so they occasionally do my plays over in England.
That's awesome. I love it.
Good for you for moving there. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'll talk about that after the panel. But getting back into specifically the panel itself, and more of like the director, the more of the collaborative theatrical experience of how do you, as a new playwright, if you're like just wrote your play, how do you get it to the point where like you're presenting it to a theater company to perform, and it's not yet published, versus, okay, my play is published and now theater companies want to do my play. So what are some of the benefits of non-publishing, getting your play out there, versus published play, getting your play out there? And what are some of the challenges of both that you find? Why don't we start kind of with the non-published world? So Anthony, do you want to talk about your experience?
Yeah. I mean, I'm starting to learn a little of the world of publishing, but as far as non-publishing, there's a lot of freedom of, oh, cool, this draft right now, it's all right, but I can always fine tune it till the end. Like there's always like, I can keep working on it.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have a reading of it. Okay, there's a couple of pages I need to fix here. Let me throw in these last couple of pages. Versus, I guess something published is, it's for the most part is set in cement. Yeah, I think being in the non-published world and putting up plays, there's still a lot of fun that you can really trust in actors in doing stuff. And oh, cool, that's like I've had a reading one time of one of my plays. It's called Emma and the Susies, and it takes place in the 1960s, and it's just about these like high school teenage girls that they just rebel. It's all about like fighting against the high school system. And there was a moment in one of the plays where I wrote it kind of like a joke, like, oh, this is gonna get a laugh. And the actress played it very sincerely and very like open-hearted, and it was actually a very tender moment. And I went, oh wow, oh okay, no, this is different. This is cool, and it makes you see your play in a different world, and it allows you to go, okay, well, if that happens there, maybe I can keep working on this scene a little bit more. I can keep having this character like go through these emotions that are a little bit more deeper, instead of me just writing a joke here. Like, oh, okay. So I guess non-publishing can allow you that freedom of you're still fine-tuning things and still figuring out what the play is.
Yeah, most definitely. Kind of want to go in order of like publishing, so Wade and then Kitty. So Wade, within like, you've done non-published plays, at Canyon Theater Guild in the Maine. So what are some of like your opinion between your published plays and your non-published plays?
I kind of depends. I guess you were asking like if you were a new playwright. I think it would depend on. My advice would be it would depend on like the genre that you were writing for, and also the audience that you're writing for. So if I was going to give advice, I would say to know your market very well, as far as like, am I just going to write for like artsy black box theaters? Do I want this to be a regional theater? Do I want to, get on Broadway someday? I would say get a writer's market guide, and you can find out the different playhouses, and there's lots of online resources. Find out about playwriting competitions, and before you send things to a certain playhouse or a certain publisher, make sure that you're paying attention to the list. Figure out what they publish, because a lot of people waste time of the publishers and editors, as well as the playwrights' time, by sending things off to a place where it's like they're never gonna produce this kind of play. I think that for the most part, it's many of my plays have been written and then I sent them off without them ever being published. But again, that's for the school market, so that's pretty common in the school market. Anything that I've done that's sort of a level above school market, for adult and family audiences or regional theater type stuff, most of those plays have been written and then performed, sometimes, like I say, by me directing it, or working with Chris, or working with David Steers, and then when it's performed, when it's not published yet, it's a good idea to try to generate as much publicity as you can, take as many cool photos as you can, try to get like a little even if you write your own press release, or if you can get a local paper to get some coverage of that event. And then when the play has had its debut, then when you send that to publishers, you could say, hey, we opened up at the main theater in Newhall, California, and here's some photos, and here's what Santa Clarita the newspaper said about us. And so places like Samuel French, probably at that level at least, Samuel French might not take an interest, but some other places like dramatists or play scripts, they might kind of like that mid-level, professional level, but not as prestigious as some of the other ones. They might take an interest depending on how well they think the play could do. One last thing about marketing is, remember that you were talking about like my unpublished plays, and I feel lucky. I only have a handful of plays that have never been published, but one of them that's never been published, I wrote it to, I've revised it since, but nobody's bought it ever since. I guess it lost its chance. But I described the set as this 2-story set with a porch. And I put in all these details as it's got to be 2-story steps, and a wall opens up so you see the inside of the bedroom. So I had these grand ideas of what the set was going to be like. And I sent out, and editors that I knew very well were like, no, we're not going to do this. And the reason why is because I had specified something that was going to be expensive. So I think the plays that sell most often, at least at the level that I'm talking about, obviously if you're Andrew Lloyd Webber, don't worry about sets and things like that. But the level I'm talking about, it's best if you say, hey, this it's flexible. It takes place in a kitchen. Maybe you pantomime the dishes. Giving the director and the producer flexibility is something that play publishers desire, because they know that this play might not go to Broadway, but it might go to 100 regional theaters that are going to have a budget of $50. And so if you can write keeping that in mind, then it's more marketable for you to get published.
Most definitely. Kitty.
Yeah, I totally agree. You have to keep the set, you have to keep in mind the price and how difficult it would be to build a set. And because that is true, that will make a difference on whether or not some plays get published. And I was very fortunate to have 5 plays published by Samuel French. And my agent was the president of the company, and he was wonderful. He and I developed a very, very nice rapport. And he told me once, he said, I've gotten compliments from directors who have done your shows because they can tell that you have experience in sign and theater, and you keep it at a low cost, but it's still a well done set. But you make it possible for schools to do and low budget community theaters to do as well. And they really appreciate that. So yeah, that is very important. And one thing I've been fortunate in is, because these plays were published by Samuel French, there's a list well, now it's Concord Theatricals. They, I guess they bought out Samuel French. They now represent all of their plays. But there's a list on their website that shows all the theaters that have done your shows and when they were done. And so what I did during the pandemic is, and since I don't have an agent now because Concord Theatricals doesn't act as an agent, and so it's a lot tougher because now I have to do all my own marketing, which is fine. I don't mind marketing myself. You know, I think it's actually kind of fun, but it was a lot easier to have my agent doing it along with me, you know, and he could get to places I can't. Like a lot of times I'll look up theaters online and they'll say submission by agent only. And you know, so now I'm limited. I can't go to those theaters. And so I have to do it myself and I have to watch who does accept non-agent submissions and who doesn't. But I went through that list. I printed it out of all the plays or the theaters that have done my plays. Well, not all of them. They only go back the last like 5 or 6 years. So, but I printed out what they had. And I contacted all of those theaters and I said, you were nice enough to produce my play On Hold at 30,000 Feet back in 2018. Would you be interested in reading my 3 new one-acts? And so far, every one of them has said yes. And I've had a lot of theaters that have done one of my plays that have actually contacted me and said, do you have anything else we could read? And they've been nice enough to produce more than one of my shows or plays. And so I've kept a rapport with those theaters. And when I do write something new, I contact them and say, would you be willing to read it? So, you know, it's harder to market yourself, but it can be fun and it can be very rewarding because you do develop a relationship with these theaters. And sometimes they'll tell you, well, I did Terminal Terror and that's where I met my husband, you know? And so they'll say, so that play is very special to me. So I want to do something else you wrote, you know? And so it's rewarding, even though it's tougher, but it is easier when a play's published because it will come out on their website. And I don't know if Concord Theatricals has the same catalog. You know, Samuel French had that catalog that they printed out all their plays and they sent it out to just about every theater in the world. I don't know if Concord Theatricals does that.
They've made it more digital. So Concord took over Samuel French and has made it completely digital. So if you want to play, you have to search it. And then they do have a money, like how much it'll cost estimate tool now.
Okay.
But I would say that's sometimes very faulty because they'll say it'll charge you 300, but in reality it'll be somewhere in the 450 range. Not wanting to get in trouble with Concord Theatricals, I will not talk more on them. But I think it's unfortunate because Samuel French was such a big player in the industry for a while.
Oh, I know, they were great. Oh yeah, and Charlie, who was my first agent there, he was amazing. I mean, I went to New York and had lunch with him once. And I mean, he would call me and say, I just wanted to let you know that Psycho Night is being done in Cincinnati if you want to go see it, you know. And he would tell me these things. And other than that, I have no way of knowing. And well, now I can go on the Concord Theatrical website and they do have a Now Playing or whatever they call it. And you can look it up. But Charlie was great about calling me, and then when it's a professional production, I had to sign a certain contract because no community theater or school can do the play at the same time within a 50-mile radius. Mm-hmm. And so I had like I'm going to say no, you know, but I did have to sign a certain contract saying it's okay if no other theater can do it at that time. So, you know, you do find out more when your plays are published, but when they're not, you get a more intimate relationship with the theater itself because you presented the play to them. So the relationship is between you and the theater right from the start. And that's very special too.
Going into COVID-19 world, we're quarantined at home. We've been here for a year, especially here in California. What are some of have you been writing plays at this time? Or have you been able to show work? Have you written Zoom plays? What have you done creatively to kind of keep your playwriting at a level that you want, or just keeping your artistic integrity up during this time?
Me?
Oh, anybody can take it.
Oh, yeah, I have. I've written 3 new one-acts. And like I said, I had a Zoom reading of them. And it was a blast. And I put the link out on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've contacted theaters and said, when you're ready to start producing again, would you be willing to, or would you be willing now to read these for consideration when you're able to start producing again? And everybody's been very receptive. And, I haven't had anybody say, no, I'm not interested, or, no, I have enough. They all say, yeah, we want to see new works. So, yeah, I encourage all you guys, write and send it out, because they're looking, they're open,
Anthony?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I have a friend who works at Center Theater Group. His name is Jesus Reyes, and he works at the Community Development Department over there. And when COVID hit, and what he would do before is that they would read plays throughout different Los Angeles public libraries to the community. And when that hit, can't go to libraries anymore during that time. And he said, okay, well, I have this money, let's do something. So he reached out to a pool of writers, and he said, hey, would you guys like to write some stories, write some plays, and we'll do some sort of like digital content for it. So I ended up writing the play I had mentioned previously, the El Verde series, the superhero. I wrote a spinoff called La Naranja. So it was from the green to the orange. And La Naranja is El Verde's wife, who is also a superhero, but she's a school teacher, and she has to fight like monsters and things. And I ended up writing it almost like a comic book, but we were able to get actors to read for it. We recorded it, and then I also drew the pictures as well. And so we had like a little, I guess, play, comic book, video kind of mashup of all these different things. But it was really fun. It was really fun to like think outside the box, and this doesn't have to be us reading in, the pages. Like, it's us now watching pictures that I drew.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah,
Did that go onto YouTube, or was that just streamed?
Yeah, it's on the I think right now it's on the Center Theater Group website. They have a section where it's like community stories. I know definitely it's on Center Theater Group's YouTube page.
Anthony, when this video gets posted on Facebook, I encourage you to put the link on the comment section.
Okay,
so people can check
definitely.
it out. Because this sounds incredible. I'm gonna definitely watch it. Wade.
Oh gosh.
I know you've been doing your podcast or your Facebook lives that I catch every once in a while.
I've been a naughty little playwright this quarantine, because I have not. The only thing that I've written at the beginning of quarantine, I wrote one Zoom play that's basically imagine Hogwarts class being taught on Zoom, and that's what it's called, The Magic of Zoom. And then after I did that, I quickly lost my taste for trying to do more Zoom plays, and I just kind of moped around for a little while, going like, I miss the theater, and I miss, so I've been. And even though things are starting to open up, it's like, I'm not writing a play until I know the theater still exists, like so. So I've been dabbling with other things. I've been doing a lot of YouTube videos, making a lot of YouTube videos, not just watching them. And I've been writing children's books, and I've started writing, I guess, making like card games and interactive games and improv kind of games. I guess that's the most theatrical thing that I've done was I made a box of basically prompts that you could use as a very improv based game. But I have, for whatever reason, I really haven't been inspired to write a play for about a year now.
You will.
I'm sure I will.
Yeah.
It's not like I haven't been doing things.
Yeah.
It's just that I haven't gotten around to writing another
Yeah.
play.
Well, you're still writing.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I think a lot of people have they've been waiting for theater to open. And I think we're like moving there very slowly. We've been moving towards theater opening. I know that the Main is gonna be open in August. So, and then I know a lot of theaters are talking about their 2022 season right now. So I think that the world will shift back to live theater. It just takes some time.
Yeah, and really quick to add to that, I think us and just people in general as artists, like during COVID, there was the sense of, oh my gosh, I'm an artist, I need to keep creating or I'm going to lose my mind. But also, your mental health comes first. So if you took some time off and like rested and took care of yourself, like that's more important. Like your state of mind needs to be in a good place in order for you to keep creating. And I think a lot of times, and just talking to a lot of friends, they felt like guilty because they couldn't produce or they couldn't do anything during COVID. But it's like, it's okay. Like this happened like 100 years ago. Like this hasn't happened a lot of times, and it's okay to let that pressure go. As an artist, like you can breathe a little for once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And I didn't, I guess I actually kind of, although that's an excellent message to convey, because I know a lot of people that felt like they weren't doing anything. I guess to me, it kind of, as an artist in general, I guess it sort of gave me an opportunity, right? The idea that theater is halted. There was like this 1 month kind of gloom and doom about it. But then I think that's why I sort of channeled different avenues that I never considered before. So that aspect of the quarantine turned out to be very positive. But talking with you guys now, I do feel like my batteries are recharging. It's like I gotta do something. I gotta get something ready for the stage when everything opens up again. I'm hoping that Chris and I are going to do something on the Main soon. Would be great.
I think it's interesting.
Fingers crossed.
I think it's interesting too, because it's like, I think a lot of people have explored different avenues in COVID. So for instance, like I learned how to sound edit in the middle of COVID. Like I edited a song with 24 different people singing, all recorded individually, and it was insane. And I don't suggest anybody do it, but I did it. But the ability to learn a new skill, but then take it into your theater world. So take some, you've done YouTube videos for like this whole time. So maybe even taking that aspect of like, what is a YouTube video, the structure of a YouTube video, maybe taking it into theater. How can we take something that may seem benign or not benign, but something different that's not really theater, but like make it theatrical enough to bring it to the stage.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this last year impacts playwrights. Mm-hmm. and what will they create that's kind of, because we're all about, I think, to come out of our little shell, and whether we've been writing or not, I think we're ready to become creative in the theatrical sense again, and I'm excited to see what kind of new, there's going to be brand new creations that out there, so I can't wait to see what people have cooked up.
I think it's interesting too, because it's like we've just kind of come out of a weird time, because I think about playwrights in Eastern Germany during the Russian occupation in the 1950s and 60s, and I think of Heinrich Müller. He was trapped there, and like he wrote plays, and he was arrested for them, and constantly like he wrote them about the world that he was living in. And so I think, like, even though I'm sure many people would not want to see a quarantine play, a play about being quarantined, I think the ideas of what we've all experienced can be experienced theatrically, kind of. And do you think your experience in quarantine will add to your playwriting, and like how will it add, or what is something that you're going to take with you from the quarantine of like the year positively? Like what's something positive that you can be like, I'm going to use this positive thing to really change how I do my theater?
It's
That's a great question.
Yeah. I think not to sound redundant, but I think it is. I think it is making sure that I'm okay in a good point mentally in order to work creatively.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think about working as an artist, and there was a time where I was doing 3 jobs, which included also trying to write a play, and I was like, wow, I really was hustling, and I didn't give myself that space to actually breathe a little. And I think now I kind of see when it comes to working creatively, I go, okay, it's okay to give yourself a little bit more time to let the pressure go a little bit, because it's not life and death here. We're writing stories, and we're writing stories to entertain people, and it's not going to be the end of the world if I don't get the most perfect play out of this right now.
Yeah, I love that. That's so. I think a lot of times as theater artists, especially like theater artists who have to work other jobs to do theater, I think there's that idea. We forget to take care of ourselves sometimes, and like we forget the importance of self-care. Because like I remember I was the theater kid who could not stop talking about theater, and like that gets annoying. And I realized like how much of the world like I was missing, because it's like I should take a break from theater when I'm not there. Like there are points in my life that I'm like in theater and doing it and I love it and that's my passion. But when I'm not in theater, I should take a break and really see different avenues of the world. Yeah. Kitty, Wade, any thoughts on the positive thing you're going to take out of quarantine?
I feel like well, you know how like about a half hour ago I was saying like, hey, if you want to market, do this, market, and I actually do feel, even though I can rattle off my own strategies that I've used over the years, I feel and I kind of hope that I'm approaching the place where I don't actually care about marketability, and because most of my writing career has been focused on, I do want to write something that's good, that's excellent, but I also want some gatekeeper to acknowledge that it's excellent and open up the gates to perform the play or publish the book. And so, and I don't know if it's been quarantine or if it's just the fact that I'm getting older, but I'm starting to feel that the sort of the shiny grail of success, I don't have to necessarily pursue that. I've had some success. I've done certain things that I'm proud of, and some of them are in part of like a little financial success or a little economic boon. But a lot of the things I'm proudest of, might be like so obscure you can't. They're in my drawer here, that. And so I think that I'm getting this last year. It seems like that haze of being so focused on what's going to sell, how am I going to get my foot in the door of this place. I feel like that's starting to go away. Maybe I'm dying. I don't know, but I feel like and it's not completely. That's why I'm saying like I feel like I'm walking towards it, because I've had decades of thinking. Maybe it's been the wrong thinking, but I've had decades of thinking like this is how you do it. You got to get an agent. You got to get and now I'm starting to let go of that, and I think that's a good thing, because I do kind of want to see what I would create if I honestly didn't care about other people's opinions, because that hasn't happened before. I've always thought of other people when I'm creating things and their opinions, and so I'm wondering if I can get to the point where it's like, this is really genuinely just for me.
Really quick to add to that, to Wade, just really quick, just I think it's hard. The one thing you don't really hear about the hard thing of being a writer is that not only do you have to pour your heart and soul into a piece of art, into a piece of script, like then you have to go and try to sell your stuff, and then that in itself is a toil, and you're just like, oh my god, like then you start to question your own work, and you get into this like this mind games of yourself of like, is this good enough because it's not selling, and but you know you worked really hard on it.
Yeah.
I can see. Yeah, definitely. I can see why like the path of a playwright is very interesting. Like the modern path of a playwright. This idea of writing the play, marketing the play, getting the play published or not published, depending on your situation, and trying to get the success within that collaborative world, because it's, you're not necessarily behind the casting table. You're kind of giving your baby to somebody else to make. You're saying, hey, director, take this thing I wrote and do your stuff, do your art. But this is my art, this written manuscript. Please don't change words. Don't change. don't cut people. Don't cut characters. Don't do that. I wrote it this way.
I had a horror story about that. One of my plays was done by an equity company in LA, and I went to see it. They changed a line, and I had it very innocent and funny. They changed it to be very dirty. And my mouth just dropped, and it took everything I had not to stand up and say, I did not write that line. And I mean, I was just cringing for the whole rest of the play. And when it was over, I went up to the director and he said, well, and I said, oh. And he said, did you like it? And I said, oh, you guys were great. And I said, I noticed you changed a line. And he goes, oh, I wondered if that was going to bother you. And I said, hey, it's your show. I mean, what could I say? At that point, what could I say? So I just said, hey, it's your show. But inside, my stomach was just turning. So yeah, that's tough.
And to me as a director, I don't think that's kosher. I don't think it's cool to like change somebody's script. I mean, you can change
and I think they're supposed to get permission from the author to do that, from what my agent at Samuel French told me. He said, oh, they can't change your words without your permission. Well,
they're not supposed to.
That's the only time it's ever happened.
Yeah, I know that some theater artists, there's that idea of like respect of the playwright, respect of what is written, and I think that I'm hoping that as my generation comes up, my generation of theater artists, we start to more respect the written word and like what's written, and not try to subtract from what's written, but take the play and then add to it. There, you can always add the theatricality on top, but if you subtract from what the writer's trying to get, you're not doing the play anymore. You're doing your idea.
Yeah.
It's like doing Waiting for Godot and not setting it with a tree and a rock. The Beckett estate would go crazy. Kitty, though, I would love to hear, getting back on topic. I lost my topic. What was the positive thing that you're going to take out of COVID for you?
Just all the writing I did. I mean, I did the 3-1-acts. I wrote 3 children's books, and I also write vampire tours. I wrote the Vampire Tour of San Francisco, which has been running for 20 years now, and I perform it. It's a 1-woman show, and up until the time I moved to Mariposa, for the first 10 and a half years, I was doing this every Friday and Saturday night, all year round, and of course on Halloween and New Year's Eve. Well, I've also written the Vampire Tour of London and one for New York. And so I have taken advantage of this time to dive into another one, you know. So I just totally took advantage of this time to write my heart out, you know, and just keep going and doing all the things. I didn't let it stop me. And I think that's really had a great mental effect on me because I didn't feel stifled by the pandemic. I didn't feel held back at all. I just took advantage of the time and kept going. And I brought a lot more done than I would have if there wasn't a pandemic, you know, because I don't know if I would have written the 3-1 acts. I have thought about it, and maybe I would have written 1 or 2, but I got all 3 done, and they're all together as a set. And they can be done separately, just like my other 3-1 acts. They're together. They were published together as a set. They've been done together as a set, and they've also been done separately. And same with these 3. And so, no, I've had a wonderful pandemic, which sounds really bad, but I loved it. I mean, I took advantage of it, and I used it in a positive way, you know, as far as writing goes.
Most definitely. I think we're winding down on our time, but I love this idea of just taking this positivity into your life, into the theater, and just sharing more positivity from this moment. I think that the world has been negative. A lot of negativity have been out there, and it's nice to hear what positive things that are going to come out of the last year that was negative for most people. I would really like, is there any advice that you have as established playwrights to new playwrights or playwrights who just haven't started yet, or somebody who just has an idea and they want to write a play, they just don't know how to start? What advice do you have for these people who just don't know or are on the up and up?
I would say write down your ideas and don't ever tell yourself, I can't do this. You know, you can do it if you want to. That's the beauty of writing. If you have a subject that you're interested in or that you want to write about, nobody can tell you, oh no, you can't write about that. Yes, you can. You can write about anything you want. And if it goes from a play to a book, if you end up writing a novel instead of a play, fine. You know, just don't stifle yourself and don't limit yourself. Imaginations are endless. Let them go. Just let your imagination do whatever it wants to do and don't hold it back.
Thank you, Kitty. Anthony?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to share your work. Make sure you let other people know that you want to be a writer, that you want to you want to write plays, you want to write stories, and also like start and even just simple YouTube videos of like the hero's journey. What is simple beginning, middle, end, character arcs, just little things like that. But at the end of the day, it's like your style is going to shine when you really start just getting to work at it. And also find the people you can trust that you can share your work to. Because I know it's one thing to say you can go out and you can find someone to go, oh, this guy works in theater, he must know something, but he can totally just not give you the appropriate kind of notes. Like it takes a while, but you will eventually find people that you can trust, that you can share your work, and then you can keep writing and keep growing.
Most definitely. Wade?
Both of you have come up with excellent words of wisdom that I have to follow. So that's but I guess I would say that whoever you are, your voice has value, and you're not alone in whatever struggles and triumphs you have. And when you write something, certainly when you write a play, there are readers out there, audiences out there. For me, it's very important to know that there are actors, many of them young actors out there, and their voice has value as well. So there's something really magical that happens when the voice of the playwright and the unique voice of the actor, when those two things come together, right? There's someone out there that wants to interpret your own words in a special way that's only going to happen even if they do your show 100 times, every performance is going to be unique. So that one time on that one night that they're saying those lines, it's this unique experience. That's why theater is always going to be different than the movies, because it's this living art form. And so I think if you're aware of that, it's the fun and the excitement of that idea is going to become contagious if you let it. And in a more practical sense, I would say get into the habit of writing, because it needs, if you want to do it if you just want to write a play once and never do it again, that's do it your own way. But if you want to keep writing, it's like exercise, unfortunately. You should keep doing it in some form or another.
Yeah, most definitely. I want to bring this to a close, but I kind of love to end it with you three as playwrights. So my next question is, please tell me any project, anything exciting that has to do with just personal life. You want to talk about that, something professional that you're doing, something that has to do with playwriting, just something that's coming up for you that maybe people can see or they can know about, or just something that you can share with somebody. Also, please share your social media accounts if you have like a professional one that you want people to follow. We'll just go in order of the way we introduce ourselves back at the start. So we'll go Wade, Kitty, Anthony, and then I'll close us out, and that's the end of our New Heights. So Wade, go for it.
Let's see. So I get to market things.
Yeah.
This is my latest children's book. It's called Mr. Complain Takes the Train, and it's all dialogue. So this kind of shows how playwriting can take other forms. So it's just the characters are talking to each other, and that's how the story, of course, the illustration I did not do. The illustration is quite brilliant and does some of the storytelling as well. So that's Mr. Complain Takes the Train. And my website is my name, wadebradford.com.
Awesome. Kitty?
I have a couple of productions coming up. A theater in Oregon did my play, A Slice of the Blarney, at the beginning of 2020. Thank God it was in January, and I got to see it. I got to see closing night. It was done on my birthday, and one of their directors just said that they want to direct Psycho Night at the Paradise Lounge. So I have that to look forward to, and I get to start my tour again, the Vampire Tour of San Francisco. I have missed doing that so much, and I'm going to start it up again July 3rd. And because I live in Mariposa, I only do it once a month, the first Saturday of the month from May through October. But it's going to run the first Saturday of each month until October, and then of course on Halloween. So if you guys are in San Francisco on the first Saturday of a month, please come see the tour. It is a blast. It's 85% true history with fun vampire lore and humor mixed in. So it's been described as more of a stand-up comic routine than a walking tour. And so that website is www.sfvampiretour.com. And then the website for my plays is stageplays.org. And so hopefully those will all go well, and
You're back.
You're good. Your Zoom cut out for a little bit.
Something? I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear us? Can you hear us now, Kitty?
Oh.
Anthony, why don't you close us out?
Okay.
Yeah, Wade is like frozen. Oh.
I know that doesn't help, right? So going back to I'll be having my first published play
Okay,
coming
now
out.
Anthony's frozen.
Oh. So I'll be having my first published play coming out. It's called Little Red. I co-wrote it with my co-writer Oscar Barsuto and musician Quetzal Flores. It is a punk rock adaptation of Little Red Riding Hood. It will be available through Youth Plays later this year. So if you want to look for that later, I mean, Youth Plays will have it available. I'm not sure when exactly, but I'll let you know. Social media goes, it's my handle is at El Verde Show. So it's ELVERDESHOW. And that's the superhero series that I write.
Awesome. So that is the end of our New Heights. I apologize for the sound. My dad is rehearsing a play next door, so I'm dealing with double sounds right now. But thank you all so much for being here. Please follow us at The Main, facebook.com/The Main Newhall, or on our Instagram. You can like us at The Main, or you can go to our website at themain.com. That is the actual @ symbol followed by the. So please join us as The Main reopens. Thank you for joining us for New Heights. My name is Stephen Nyman. Thank you for letting me host this wonderful opportunity. And please join us again for live theater in 2021, in fall, and in 2022. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.